Welcome to another edition of She Unleashed. She Unleashed is, of course, dedicated to you. As a corporate woman, you are looking to pivot, you are looking to make big breaks at work, you're looking to climb the ladder. Also, if you're an entrepreneur, you want to pivot to the next best thing, you want to go global. We are here as the sisters who are here to share what we've learned along the journey. I bring you the best in the world. Today, particularly, is about not just about your climbing and the toolkits for climbing, but about your well-being, about your mental health. How do you take care of yourself? How do you buffer yourself against the toxic environment? And we have just the perfect person for that. We have an excellent speaker. She is a medical doctor by profession. She is a family physician and she speaks all things pertaining to your health. Today, I introduce you to Unati Makiwane. She's based in Canada, but she's South African. And she is such an amazing lady. She's the girl she's a friend that every girl should have. She is amazing. Dr. Makiwane, welcome. And it's so nice to have you finally on board.
Finally, thank you so much, Puza, for having me. How are you? Congratulations, I love your show. I've been watching all your shows. So inspiring. Thank you so much for having me.
Ah, thank you so much. You know I'm such a fan. So today is I'm just goosebumps all over. Dr. McEwen, how did you land up in Canada? How did this journey end up to where you are? And just your journey of being a doctor. I understand that you've had an amazing, journey and route up until you came to Canada. Tell us a little bit about Dr. McEwen. Who's she? What makes her tick? And what is she all about?
Thank you so much, Puza. So basically, I'm Unati Makiwane. I'm a family doctor, GP. Basically, I always tell people that this is something I wanted to be since I was seven. I remember as a 7-year-old girl growing up in a small town in Kala. I grew up around people who were doctors, lawyers, teachers, but I mean, my mom was a nurse too, but being a doctor was fascinating. And our home actually was attached to the hospital. I remember growing up, we used to throw apples and bananas and to the nursing students. That way, basically, their nursing college was attached to our yard. So that environment always fascinated me. So that's basically where it started. And I grew up and managed to get good high school grades. And I went to Unitra. That's where I studied. And just when I was there, my mother moved to England. My mom is a nurse, so she moved to England, and then of course they wanting to be abroad again was fascinated by her. She said, "Okay, no, when you're done, you could probably move here, or you could move to Ireland." So I said, "Okay, sure." And then I spoke to my best friend. Actually, after I finished my community service, because after that med school, you go again another training, your internship, your community serve. So we actually registered and with Ireland, we were ready to go. And then somehow she heard from one of her best friends who was moving to Canada that what, Canada has better opportunities. And of course, it was at the time of the economic meltdown in Ireland. So I changed my mind. I said, okay, I would like to know more about this Ireland, I mean, about Canada. So that's what happened. And then one of my friends, actually, childhood friends in Johannesburg, she said, okay, you're going to Canada. I actually have a friend here in Joburg who has parents who are doctors in Canada. And maybe I need to connect you guys. And she did. So here's the thing. I spoke to the parents. And the first thing the old man asked me, he said, are you single or are you married? I said, single. He said, ooh, it can be lonely in Canada. And you might be probably be placed in the rural outskirts of Canada. I said, throw it on. Please bring it on. I can do it. He said, think about it though, because you can be lonely here. So yeah, I came and at that time though, I kind of canceled my trip. And then 3 years later, I met my partner and then the journey started.
That's
2010,
amazing.
since 2010, I've been here. It's been awesome.
So you never got to the part of being lonely after all, hey, which is amazing.
No, and it can be. It can be. Actually, he was in South Africa for some time. It can be lonely. Canada is a beautiful country and very lovely people, conservative too. But if you don't have your family, your immediate family, it can be hard. I have few colleagues that left; they couldn't do it. So yeah, you have to be tough, and also again, your why. Me, I had decided that I was leaving, and I was ready to just kind of stay on, and I did it, and here am I.
Hmm. So I've realized you found an affinity for mental wellness, and I see you talk about it. You talk about mental health, the topics. You have your own podcast, by the way, where you talk about matters of health. And I mean, before we came on, we were talking about just the whole perspective of how Canada views health. And when you're a family physician, how you get to understand your patient holistically. Tell us a little bit about that discussion, that chat, and what inspires to look deeper than just the symptoms of your patient.
Yes, yes, yes. I love that, Pumza. You know what? Family medicine is just about the whole being. It's not only focusing on the disease. Like right now, we are facing a pandemic. People are stressed. People lost jobs. There's so much shifting in the organization. So there's a lot of stress. And unfortunately, there's also drug abuse, substance abuse, and broken relationships. We're seeing here in Canada, we're seeing a rise in divorces. So basically, we are looking at you holistically. Actually, like what I was saying to you last year, one of my assistants was talking about, have you noticed that we're seeing a lot of men calling in because they are struggling with alcohol abuse, and depression and anxiety. So yeah, there's been so much shift. So yeah, we're gonna talk about how we could probably unpack all of that. Family medicine is beautiful that way. I'm not only just looking at your high blood pressure. Maybe you could have uncontrolled hypertension because of the stress you are facing. So there's a lot of things, and of course your blood sugar and I could be increasing your antidepressant, and probably there's toxicity you're dealing with at work. So there's so much people are facing right now.
That's beautiful. And I think before we came on board, we were talking about exactly how people are reflecting on what is important, especially women who are at
Yes.
home, who are reflecting on whether, I mean, reviewing their lifestyles, reviewing their corporate environments, and assessing whether they would be, going back or not, and what are the options that they're coming across. What are you getting a lot from women who are calling you and talking to you about maybe, let's talk about corporate women. What are their reflections?
Right. Yes, yes. You know what? There's a lot of pivoting right now. People are thinking about some people that were working for organizations, they've thought of going solo and just getting into the entrepreneurial space. There's a lot of that, but people are scared. Entrepreneurs, not everyone. One time, Gary Vee, he talks about it's not for everyone, right? When you are an entrepreneur. So there's also that fear of the unknown. People are scared to take that leap of faith, but they are willing to do that. The security, at this point, economically, globally, things are just as messy as it is in South Africa and here in Canada. We are all scared, right? So there's that. So there's also that shift. There's people that have jumped on it and started their own businesses. Actually, one of my new patients who is a dietitian, she was working for the government for probably for 12 years. And she said, you know what, doc, I decided to just start my own. And now the beauty of it all, I'm doing it from home. Now I don't have to pay anyone's rent. Something I've never thought. I'm counseling my patients on the internet now. I'm sitting in front of my Zoom and I'm telling you, so there's a lot of change and there's a lot of progress in terms of how we can do things. Here we are. Right now, I last year I canceled my trip to Nigeria. I was set to speak in Nigeria, but you know what? Things changed. We went virtual. So there's a lot of things that have changed in the corporate world. But then again, I'll talk about those that are remaining in the corporate space. People are struggling with bosses that are not necessarily respecting their space. Pumza, there's a lot of emails in inappropriate times. Sometimes people are expected to send that email back. So we're talking about boundary setting. So I think that's what I think I would like us to talk about, and how people could actually cultivate that. Because we also have family responsibilities. You don't want to
Absolutely.
have those issues. Yes, yes.
Absolutely. And I'd like for us to go deeper on that one because it is a big issue. And I think what we don't understand with the new structure. I think there's just that assumption that, you know what, we are in a comfortable space. There's always been an assumption of more advantage for the
Right?
employee than what it actually is. Because there's been an assumption that you're relaxed, you're home, you don't have to wake up to go to work. So you find that that imposition is from that perspective. It's like there's an obligation for you to respond at such and such a time. Meanwhile, we forget that, I mean, we spoke about imposing on, you know, the children's personal space. All of a sudden now we have to be shouting children to be, you know, to to reduce the sound, to not talk louder, and this is their home space as a space for family, and
Right.
people have to tiptoe around that. And from an employer's perspective, we are not cognizant of that. What are these lessons that you can give, Dr. Makiwane, to employees on how they can build healthy boundaries? No, still
Right.
respectfully, still be, responsible for their work, but also caution, you know, the employers that remember this is my personal space that you're encroaching on.
Right. Yes, yes. You know what, Pumza? I'm a big believer of servant leadership. It starts with leaders. Like, I'm an employer. I'm a leader. I'm very respectful of my employees' space. So I think that's the key thing. I'm hoping that employers could exercise that servant leadership and also opening those communication lines. I'm not a believer of the boss terminology. To be honest, I'm more using the leader because when I give that duty to my employees, I trust that they will definitely get on it. So I think that's the key thing: trusting your employees. So I'm hoping that people could also be able to speak up. I think this is the best time to hold those virtual meetings, and I'm hoping also employers could be consistent with that, the checking in. I started that when we were on lockdown for 3 months. I did check, I checked on my employees, how we doing? Let's hop on the call. How are you doing? Just checking and not necessarily just getting deep on their personal space on how they are doing. So I think we need to bring that human factor in
Mhm,
this. These are the hard times that we've been tested, Pumza, to be human, you know,
mhm,
and to also understand, like you were saying, I don't want my employee to feel scared and also not to tell me that, dog, I'm going to definitely be on your billings, but
mhm,
I need to definitely take my child. I have to go for this dental appointment, for instance. But the key thing is she's gonna deliver. So I think the key thing is the importance of getting that communication out, and also speaking up as an employee, because sometimes some employers, they're not mindful of those things. Speaking up is very important, and also, your wishes, and also how you're going to deliver. The key thing is the work is going to be done.
mhm,
Speaking up and communicating how you would like to also still function in your home space while you are delivering. I think that's a key thing. And sometimes it's not going to come from your employer. Speaking up is important. I think that's the only way you can come across and also, show what you would like to get. If we
mhm,
don't speak, unfortunately, nothing's going to be done. So speaking up, and also that showing um, also your dedication to your work without coming across as you are lazy.
mhm.
And again, the communication lines.
Unat?
No, no, I was saying for the employers, this is the best time to exercise their social and emotional intelligence, because there's also a fear of loss of jobs. People would give themselves without even giving themselves breaks. So I think employers, this is the best time to show their human factor and also to be considerate. The key thing is giving that trust that your employees will deploy. That's
Mhm,
the key thing,
mhm.
right?
Now, we spoke about toxic work environments, Dr. Unet. So I love that context because it means it's a leader that is aware. Now, surely a toxic work environment has been magnified in the context of what we are, because if it's a boss that is controlling, that wants to see you seated at a particular space, that control is magnified right now. And in a work context, at least we had an office where you could buffer the rest of your family. My greatest fear is with toxic environments, because right now we are so close to the families, it actually probably affects the family as well. Because all of a sudden,
Wow.
the family has to experience you being shouted on or being controlled or being instructed for certain things. How can employees navigate their way around this time, especially for protection of the family?
Wow. Again, Pumza, you know what? I love in my journey of my career, I've always wanted to work on my self esteem and also being in touch with women who have been there before, who have come before us, who have showed their leadership. So that's the key thing. This is the greatest time to be in communication with such leaders in your life because we need such people. It helps you, it builds you on how to show up. So that's number one. One, we need at this point, this is the greatest time to be in touch with such people that inspire you. That would help you also set those boundaries. I think I think it's even harder if you have never done that setting of boundaries when you were in the office. You are right. So now, how do you protect your family? You asked an important question. The key thing is speaking up. I Research shows that sometimes when you speak on the phone, it's you are more confident. You know, you can be more expressive. I think you have to speak up because otherwise you can't be a pushover. The way I say it, how do we exercise our personal power? You know, the significance and also, you know, respecting yourself and others. To be honest, if you have not showed up that way at work, it kind of it becomes difficult when you are in your home space where you also would love to see your kids showing up with their own friends, showing up with their intact self-esteem and being able to say no to things they're not comfortable with. So this is a test really for such people who are not able to set those boundaries in the first place with their bosses. And honestly, reach out. There's a lot of women leaders out there. There's a lot of webinars that are free, even on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on how to create that space for you, that protection for you. Because yes, there's also leaders that I mean, there's bosses that are very narcissistic, Pumza, that want it now and want it done at this time. So I think at this point, this is the very time that is important for you to protect your mental space in the best way you could. I know it's hard when you're at home, your kids are listening to you being shouted on. I think this is the best time probably to even set up meetings over the phone to I mean to I know that some people they're not finding it easy to do such, but do it scared. I'm a strong believer of doing it scared, setting up, or even in writing down what are your wishes, what how would you like to deliver the work that you are supposed to be delivering. Write it down, rehearse it, rehearse it to your spouse, to your partner, to your trusted friend. Is it okay if I word it? And also trying to avoid because that other person also could also be defensive. Trying to also avoiding those choice of words that could come across as you are coming across as you are giving that person that yes you did this in a certain toxic way, but I think you still could put that person in his or her place by writing it down and also going on that phone, writing it down, rehearsing it with someone you trust, and choosing those words in a manner that the way you said it, this is how I understood it. I think when we take it and take that ownership, people they are becoming less defensive. When we say, when Pumza, you said that to me and you wanted that email back or that work done, this is how it sounded to me. And I believe that I could still deliver that work. I could still execute this work when I think you just have to be wise with your words, Pumza. And it's tough for people that have been bullied even at work physically. I'm seeing people that are submitting a lot of work related bullying. You know, it's tough. But the key thing is setting those boundaries and also getting on that phone, doing it scared and sharing your thoughts with your immediate boss.
I love what you're saying. It's going to require a little bit of courage and coming out of your
Yes.
norm if you are not someone who were pushing back on the boundaries. So tell me, how is it for a corporate leader or a woman who is now all of a sudden dealing with everything, Dr. Unati? They're dealing with the child or with online learning, they're dealing with everything being around your home because I think that there's that lack of understanding from the male counterparts in that their time at home is still their time at home. They can lock themselves in a room and life continues. For us, especially if you have younger kids, they have no notion that you are now at work. And there's still the expectation
Yeah.
that you become the mother, especially if you're also around the house. There's that aspect as well of, you look at things different. It's unlike having a secluded time where you switch off and you can focus on this. How are women dealing with this, especially women leaders?
Awesome. I've been that woman actually. I remember when we went on lockdown, my partner traveled to South Africa. I have my 3-year-old, Pumza, I have patients. Again, it goes back to we've become very human. You
Mm-hmm.
know, I, I'm very fortunate. My practice, I have maybe 60 to 70% of older folks, like seniors. It's been the most amazing experience in terms of they would call on when I call them. And when my daughter interrupts, is that your daughter? Oh, how is she doing?
Oh,
I
but
think it's just about time we become human.
mm,
I've seen actually even, there's this guy I follow, Simon Sinek on
mm-hmm,
LinkedIn. There was a time he said, guys, I have not even cut my hair. Even men, they have become human in the
mm-hmm,
workspace. So I think that's the key thing. Also, not to be hard on ourselves. Sometimes, when we are women leaders, we tend to be hard on ourselves. We want to deliver, we want to do it now. Get real, girl. Get real. Make it in small pieces. That's how I manage to get my stress down. If
mm-hmm,
I have to do my billings, if I have to do my paperwork, my referrals, okay, what can I achieve today? Small, achievable goals is the way to go right now. And
mm-hmm,
I think once we do that, personally, we're going to be more sensitive when it comes to our employees. And again, it takes honestly emotional intelligence for leaders to do that. So
mm-hmm,
be realistic of your schedule without compromising your family. For me, family life comes first because that's part of me. So I put them together. So that's the key thing is, you know, set up goals for yourself, achievable goals. What can you achieve today? What can you achieve this week? You
mm-hmm,
have to do it all. So stop being a superwoman. Don't do it all. And you know what?
mm-hmm,
Take time for yourself.
mm-hmm,
Take time for yourself. Meditation, Pumza, exercise, drink lots of water,
mm-hmm,
right? So I think, and also have tea and coffee with your girlfriends on your Zoom. You need to chill. I think that's the key thing. Get small, achievable goals for your week
mm-hmm,
while you also not taking away from your family life.
mm-hmm,
That's my advice. That's how I've done it. And you negotiate here and there, with your kids. It can be tough. And I mean, if you are lucky enough to have your little office at home, you can actually, at least for me, I'm lucky my son is a little bit older than my daughter. I've had times where I negotiate with him. Can you please look after her at least for an hour, 30 minutes? You guys
mm-hmm,
can play together. There's those, sometimes there's those little negotiations you do it within your family space while you are focusing. But small, achievable goals is just my go to, and also watching how you feel. Because sometimes when you start feeling overwhelmed, it's time for you to take a break
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
and redirect, and then
mm-hmm,
we reboot at some
mm-hmm.
point. Yes.
So, Dr. Unat, when we went into this pandemic, there was a view, I mean, no one knew that it would last over a year. So when we all
Mm.
started, we thought, okay, give and take, the worst it can be is 6 months. How are you finding the emotions and the mental state of people at this point in time? Because probably maybe Canada is in a better space, a different space, but it's been one of those that have been a prolonged period of not knowing. You don't know. I mean, you were never prepared for anything like this. How are you finding people coping, especially now at this further stage into the pandemic?
Exhaustion. All of us were exhausted. Yesterday, believe it or not, I was so exhausted. I couldn't go to work. And I literally became honest with my staff. I said, guys, I'm so sorry. I'm tired. I'm unable to show up. And I, fortunately, I was lucky enough. I had few booked in patients, and she called them. They understood. And there's one thing I'm very cognizant of. I'm very honest with my patients. When I cannot show up, I tell them, guys, I'm tired. I'm exhausted. There's times where I would leave work when I feel that I can't stay longer. So that honesty, is very important to me, and being human. So we are all exhausted. Everyone is exhausted. No one wanted to do this. Like right now, I'm itching. I want to come home. I want to come to South Africa right now, but I can't. And I think that's one thing as humans we have realized that we are social animals. I'm missing people I've never thought I would see them. So this has created, honestly, reflection time to see what really matters to us. As much as there's this pandemic, there's so much pain, there's lots of job losses and all, the exhaustion and the anxiety and the depression. I'm starting to be more grateful, and I'm starting to draw my strength from gratitude. To be honest, I'm more grateful of being here. My family's here, no one is sick, no one died of COVID. So I'm starting to be more grateful on those little things, really. So yeah, and also this is the time where people need to attend to their mental health. This has never been a time where we experience uncertainty like we did, or like people did in the past. It's hard also on kids self anxiety. Kids are very anxious. They are spending more time on internet, so this is also time that parents need to be very careful on what their children are consuming, right? Recently there's actually one of the psychologists. She's a celebrity psychologist in the States. She lost her son who was on Snapchat, who got fentanyl, who that was laced with something, and he died. So these are times that we need to be very careful. As much as we are exhausted, we are tired, we also need to be mindful of what we consume and what our kids are consuming right now, and spending time with those family members or people that make us laugh. These are times that we need doses of laughter right now, and it's hard. I can imagine, but journaling has been the greatest thing I'm doing. The journaling of the free things, the little things, and they keep me going. Really, great journaling, the greatest things that make you be here and be grateful of the things that you have. Really, I still have a job, I still have my business, I have my family. I think those things are free and they are priceless, right? So yeah, it's very tough. People are struggling and also reaching out, to for mental health support. Each country has, I believe, hotlines, and reach out to your therapist, to your physician. I think these are times that people are forced to be with themselves, to go to their cause, and to question what really matters, really.
Now, Dr. Makiwan, what do employers need to be aware of with all of this going on? Because at some point there will be time to go back to the office, whether it's not the entire workforce going to the office. What should employers be, prepared for?
I love that question, Pumza. I was actually asked by one of my friends who works for a big organization in South Africa. I'll be honest, this is the best time each organization should set up employee assistance program. The mental health, it has to be a must. It has to be in, it- you have to be implementing policies. A lot of times people are not performing, they're underperforming, and people lose jobs, they are fired because of underperformance. So it starts with, sometimes it could be work related stress that snowballed. So, organizations, they need to set up, you know, systems, policies that would look at and normalizing, more especially in Africa. In South Africa, when I left 10 years ago, I don't remember now, like I said, I focus on men's health, mental health. I don't remember treating any man coming to my clinic with depression. These are times that we need to normalize these conversations in organizations. Let's not be reactive, make it something like, say, quarterly.
Mm-hmm.
I know that we talk about other things, the diabetes screening and all that stuff. Normalize bringing in mental health experts to your workspace to
Mm-hmm.
talk about symptoms of depression, because a lot of times people don't even know that they are depressed. Hamza. And more special, I'll talk about how sometimes even the overworking yourself, the over dedication to your work could also be your escapist behavior. So
Mm-hmm.
normalizing those conversations and bringing on those experts, say quarterly, and having them, and also encouraging people to see, the other thing we've done for our family is normalizing having a therapist, someone we could just go and just vent and be. These are times that have brought that consciousness that we need to normalize these conversations, because depression and anxiety sets in the most highly functional women in business. Do you know that Michelle Obama, she has had suicidal thoughts in this pandemic? We've seen uh, the other lady here, what's her name? Uh, Diana's daughter-in-law. What's her name now?
Mm-hmm. Megan.
Harry's wife,
Mm,
Megan.
Megan.
Yes, Megan became suicidal. So it's hard. It's tough.
Mm,
These are women that are phenomenal. We look up to. So it doesn't choose any class. So
mhm,
organizations need to be realistic about this. They need to invest in mental health. I
mhm,
think that's the key thing that I think each organization needs to look at.
mhm. And the reflections and the resignations and everything else, what should we be expecting from the women who?
Oh boy. Probably, you know what though? People might, I think I have a 50-50 uh, thoughts about that, because,
Mhm,
like I said, economically things are bad, you know. So people might resign, people might come back and still just do what they need to do. I
mhm,
think the key thing is not to leave prematurely. You need to, if you are working on that business deal or you want to start your own business, uh, don't ever leave without security. So I think employers right now, I don't think you're gonna get a lot of resignations. I would think that people would be very careful about resigning at this point, because resigning and do what? You
mhm,
understand? Because
mhm,
starting your
mhm,
own business, it takes a lot of effort and the finances and all. I think the key thing is bring in that human factor. Employers, to entice your employees, bring that human factor. You've seen it in your own space,
mhm,
working from home. You've seen your kids crawling. There was a viral video that went of this chief executive, that his son crawling to his interview. So we are human. I think we need to humanize ourselves now. So the
mhm,
key thing is also setting realistic goals, and also the realization that, most especially in the workspace right now, the millennial community, they are okay with working from home and they could still deliver. So you need to be very open minded if you're an employer and organization, that things could still be done outside the office traditional space, and also being flexible as an employer. You need to be flexible, otherwise uh, these millennials, they move on.
mhm,
So I think the retention strategies is being human. I cannot overemphasize that, being human, your expectations, you are not necessarily downgrading in your expectations, but you also need to be realistic that it has happened for all this year now. People are working from home, but still they're delivering. So the expectations and also the setting the boundaries, having those policies of what to expect from your employees, and just being human, just
mhm.
bringing yourself in leadership. And I think that's the best test we've been given right now as employers, that we don't have control of time, really, and we don't have control of situations. I think that's the key thing. That's what I would advise, bringing those mental health policies, and being human, and also being okay with people that will be working from home but still delivering.
Now tell me, at some point we will have to recover, re-energize, and get back to work. What is the advice you can give us now? We are at a point of fatigue. And when that clock switches on to get back to normality, it's going to be half the workforce exhausted.
I
How
don't
do
even
we?
think we'll ever get to normality.
Yeah, and you're
It's our
right.
new
You
normal.
are right. You're absolutely right. It would seem that as much as we talk about the human factor, certain measures of business do not change. There is always an expectation for. There's a big talk about recovery, getting back growth and all of those things. And those within a short span of time, they're gonna come back. how do we best buffer ourselves for the stress now that is coming? Because we thought this was stress. I think there's even going to be more stress because there's an expectation that whatever has been, a challenge within this time, there must be like quick recovery and getting back to a point of what is perceived as normality.
Right, yes. I think more than anything, the the employers, the leadership in the organization need to be realistic.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the realization that this happened and it cannot be a fast recovery. Right now, this is the time to work on that recovery and going back setup. How do you buffer yourself? Start now. Are you looking after your mental health right now as an employee or an employer? Because a fatigued employer becomes snappy, becomes bossy, becomes, all that toxicity. Are you looking after yourself right now? So it's not going to be then when you are going back. You start right now.
Mm-hmm.
What are you doing to buffer yourself? Are you looking after yourself? Taking those walks. I mean, at least I know that some gyms are closed, but at least take care of, it's the little things, Pumza, they're going out and listening to that beautiful music, the nature, and, these make the good hormones, the happy hormones flow. But the key thing is the going back to work. Honestly, employers need to have a set up realistic goal on. There's something Simon Sinek talks about. This is not about, you know, we give you a raise because your performance you are bringing back so and so, all that people get a raise because of their performance, and also this is not the time to do that. That's not realistic, right? The key thing is are your employees delivering at an expected rate? That's number one. And do they know what they are doing? And then set up, don't rush this. It took us a year. We are in the pandemic. We have no control. You I think you're setting up for failure if you're gonna want people to go back to as it was, and you want the performance, you want the deliverance. It's unrealistic. It starts with the leadership. What is the expected realistic goal for the organization? And then baby steps. I think that's the most realistic, because otherwise there's going to be a lot of stress in the leadership that will just entail the whole company, the organizations. And then this is when the resignation letters will be coming in,
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately. So
Absolutely.
realistic goals,
Absolutely.
realistic goals.
There's a question that is bothering me, Dr. Makiwan, and you'll answer it to the best of your understanding. What we cannot run away from is we have gone through collective trauma as just the entire world. What is the way that you think it will manifest in future? Because we went through something we've never been through. Whatever studies we could, relate to or refer back to were in 1918 when there was a pandemic. I'm not sure if we took the lesson, and I think the context was different. It was maybe contained within a specific geography. There was not this focus on it and so much death. What is this collective trauma that we will have to deal with? And how do you think it will manifest, especially for our children? Because, I mean, some of them were very young to even understand what was happening around them.
Yes, yes. It is a collective trauma, Pumza. You are right. It's a collective trauma, and it's gonna manifest in so many years, in so many ways, for so many years. You know, right now we are already seeing the results. We are seeing divorces. We are seeing suicides. We are seeing substance abuse. We are seeing all these things. So it's going to take time. Again, we need to come as a collective to deal with this, like countries, organizations. And I'm so pleased to say there's so many organizations now that are doing a lot of mental health work. I think this is the time for healing for everyone to start right now, to prepare ourselves, to put in place these things, and also to have these conversations, normalize mental health conversations. Because at this point, there's also some cultures that not necessarily talk about mental health. It's seen as weakness, it's seen as something that doesn't exist. So these are moments that we need to do some reflection and the realization that it is happening right now, and to prepare for our children for future, because reality is depression and PTSD that is going to come. People don't even have time to grieve. I've seen people, I have friends in South Africa who have colleagues and family members that they had to split times. Who are you going to bury? Are you going to go bury aunt or uncle? There's so much trauma right now. This is the time that we need to come as a collective and show each other love and support. And hence, I said, even the expectation, the unrealistic expectations from the organizations themselves is very raw and very unrealistic if people would do that. So this is the best time to be human and also to come as a collective and devise means on how to talk about these things. This is the time now we need to form clubs where men could speak about their emotions. This is the time where we could create spaces where women could come and vent about these issues because even again, like I said, in the workplaces, what are you going to put in place? This is the challenge I'm going to put to you as a leader. What are you going to put in place? What discussions are you going to have right now? Are you going to normalize men going on paternity leave because men go through anxiety too when they're having kids? So these are the things that what are you going to put in place right now? What human factors and realistic expectations are you going to put in the workplace? All right. So once we normalize that in the workplace, start having these conversations, normalizing them, use organizations like influential places like places of faith. These are the places that we need to also start talking about mental health, normalizing them. Right. So I think I'm mentioning all these things and schools. So this is a collective way of healing and normalizing that we've been hurt, we've been traumatized, and we can only heal as a community, as a collective. As I think that's what we need to do. The normalization and also the being human in all of this, the support and also the patience we need to show to each other. People, there's people that will have PTSD after all of this. I also feel I pray for my colleagues that are in the forefront. I've seen a colleague, actually I've heard of a colleague who committed suicide here in Canada last year because of the pandemic, and in the US it's happening. There's so much loss we have to deal with, so we need to be patient with each other. So yes, organizations need to be as human as they could get and putting in place resources.
That's a beautiful and profound answer, Dr. Makiwan. Just one thing, the is of course the positive side to what has happened. I think we spoke about it before we came on board. The realization of the importance of relationships, and people are starting now. You said there is a shift in the dynamic. What are these that you can pick up that are probably going to be, the positive benefits of what we've gone through?
I think I've seen it, in the culture of like this side, Western culture, it tends to be individualistic. People, they are more families with their immediate family. But I've seen actually my patients reaching out to their uncles, to their grandparents, not saying they were not, some of them, but it's just their society. This is how it is. Us, coming from the African perspective, as we were already living with our grandparents, you already have those aunts. So this has been the best time to see the value of those relationships. So I think the positive that came with this pandemic, people know that, you know what, I'm not alone. I'm not an island. I need people in my life. People are starting to check on each other. I'm speaking to friends I haven't spoken to, like my primary school friends. So this is the time that has given us an opportunity to reflect on what really matters, relationships, like you said. And unfortunately, there's also that has affected relationships badly, like marriages, and I feel bad for those type of relationships. But again, another positive about that, this also has given people that wanted to leave toxic relationships. So that is a positive, Kumza, to leave such a relationship that was not serving you better. So that's a positive for people to see that, you know what, I can take back my power and leave this toxic relationship. Kudos to those people who have done that. So yeah, I'm seeing a shift in that way. It's also a good positive for those type of people.
Wow. Dr. Unati, you make mental health so exciting. I cannot stop asking questions because every time you
I love it.
you bring a different dynamic, so it just keeps the conversation flowing. It's been such an honor. Tell me three things that you want to leave me with. It can be anything that are random, just anything that you would want me to. remember, especially at this time.
At this
Any three
time,
things that you
yes,
can share with your girlfriends, with your ladies, especially given the topic that we're going through?
yes, yes. You know what? What I could advise girlfriends: be in the moment, be in the now. You know, don't overwhelm yourself with so many tasks. We tend to be like that. We multitask. We are mothers. We have so many hats. You know, be present, and play.
Wow.
Now.
You have far exceeded my expectations. You are just a giver. You just have this open soul that gives and wants to give and wants to give. So it's been so enjoyable sitting on the other side and really listening to you, because you really, you take everything to heart and you really are a giver. And, thank you for being the person that you are. And thank you for really going to even the uncomfortable spaces. You just did it gracefully. Thank you so much for sharing. And it's been amazing. And to all our listeners, there you have it. We have the most amazing ladies who are really open-hearted and are giving. This was one of those, and for me, authentic as well. Let's be truthful. Let's be, let's remove the masks of being women. Let's be authentic. Let's get down to basics. At home, what do we do? How do we build the boundaries? So this just did that for me, and I'm so grateful, Dr. Unati, for you taking time out and for spending time to share your pearls of wisdom. Much gratitude.
You are so awesome. I enjoyed you. I enjoyed you. I loved it. I actually need to bring you. I need to bring you to my show. You're awesome.
Thank you
Because you
so
know
much.
what? Like I said, yes, like I said, in the corporate, we tend to see people coming to us with all the stress and all that stuff. So I think I would.
Absolutely. And for us, especially if you're a female in a male dominated
Yes,
industry, you have that much more of a responsibility to educate your peers, your colleagues. We had a similar instance when one of the subordinates, was finding it hard. She has a kid that is about your daughter's age, or older. She's just started school. So online is not just online. You had to actually monitor the child, show the child and so on. So, that
yes,
understanding, from a corporate perspective, I actually literally had to sit with my colleagues and say, this is what it means. Being at home is not
yes,
the comfort that you have your own office, you can close yourself and life continues. Understand the context. Some people are in one bedroom houses, in two-bedroom houses, and
yes,
they have to leave.
yes,
They still have to take care of kids. They have to, there is that obligation. So I'd love that. I'd definitely love that. Thank you so much, Dr.
yes.
Onet.
I love that.
To all our listeners,
You're
thank you so much. You
welcome. Thank you so
see,
much.
we have a talker like Pumza, so it just does not end. And she's amazing. She is, if you can follow her, because she talks a lot on mental health issues. She's available on LinkedIn. She has a podcast, and she is available as Dr. Unati Makiwane. And I will share her details because she really holds very good talks. She's talking about divorce, and oftentimes any topic that is of particular importance at that time. She is this authentic. Thank you so much, Dr. Una.